Well, George Stephanopoulos is a former White House insider turned ABC News journalist/anchor. Now he's disclosing $75,000 in recent donations to the Clinton Foundation. First he said 50, it ended up being 75. Donations he never revealed to his bosses or viewers, even when he pressed Clinton Cash author Peter Schweizer on his own bias in the April interview, the first one.
Do you have any evidence that a crime may have been committed? We've done investigative work here at ABC News, found no proof of any kind of direct action. There's no evidence at all that Hillary Clinton got directly involved in this decision. Do you have any evidence that she actually intervened in this issue? The Democrats have said this is indication of your partisan interest.
Wow. Stephanopoulos has apologized and says he won't be participating in the upcoming presidential debate as the moderator. But is that enough? Joining us right now for a fair and balanced debate, Pete Domenech, publisher of The Federalist, and Brad Woodhouse is here, executive director of Correct the Record, a new pro-Clinton super PAC. All right, Brad, for you, first off, your reaction to Stephanopoulos trying to beat out the Washington Beacon with that revelation yesterday, because they found his name on that donor list.
Well, look, I think your point there is well made. It was on a donor list published by the Clinton Foundation. It was found because the Clinton Foundation is transparent about who donates to it. And by the way, George Stephanopoulos made that contribution knowing it would be disclosed, because they do disclose all their donors. Let me just say this. The questions that George Stephanopoulos asked Peter Schweizer were virtually identical to the questions that Chris Wallace asked Peter Schweizer. No one's accusing, Chris Wallace of bias because News Corp contributed to the Clinton Foundation.
That's very interesting, Brad. Just so interesting, you seem more at ease with it than even George Stephanopoulos. Ben, in the big picture, does this change the interview? Does it change anything, seeing that George had a chance to interview him first?
You know, it's not a surprise that George Stephanopoulos is a water carrier for the Clintons. He has been for years, but he had been one of those people who had made a transition from being in political life to being a media figure and presenting himself as a news anchor who was offering fair and balanced coverage of the issues. Can you really expect that when he's someone who's donated to what it was essentially a slush fund for a future and former presidential candidate, someone who he is so closely tied to in his career? George Stephanopoulos owes more to the Clintons than Luca Brasi owed to the Godfather. Right. It's, from my perspective, something that you cannot expect him to ever be in fair and neutral arbiter on these issues in debates or as a moderator or anything else going forward.
I know Reince Priebus has pushed to have him out. I, for the most part, think he's been a very nice guy, and he seems sometimes neutral. However, does this also play into one of the most baffling things of the last election cycle, when out of nowhere George Stephanopoulos, Brad, says to Mitt Romney, hey, what about contraception? And hence we're off to the races with war on women against Mitt Romney?
Well, but Brian, Mitt Romney said he wanted to defund Planned Parenthood. It was a legitimate issue. But let me respond to something that Ben said. This idea that the Clinton Foundation is some slush fund is absolutely ludicrous. 43 million people have gotten support around the globe from the Clinton Foundation, and that's an unlost piece of this story. They're fighting AIDS in Africa. They're helping women.
Their own problem. They cannot fill out a good tax return. They've been accurate, and even the President Clinton said, you know, there's something mistakes have been made.
Hey, Brian, we could all use better accountants.
I don't think there's any way you can advance that argument and say that this is what was going on here. There are plenty of charities that George Stephanopoulos could have given to that wouldn't be raising these types of questions. The fact that he was giving mere months after he was asking questions like that of Mitt Romney is the sort of thing that's prompting questions from people about what they can expect from the debates this cycle and whether the moderators are going to have their own things that they're going to have to disclose in the future.
Guys, we'll have to leave it there. Ben and Brad, good debate. It's just starting. We'll see what ABC does. Thanks a lot. 10 minutes before the bottom.